Hello everybody, welcome to our community assessment presentation about the city of Weston. This area can be described as rural, it's flat, rustic, and the district has some obvious distinctions between where the poorer and wealthier parts are. It's about a 90-minute car ride from Morgantown and about a 30-minute car ride from Clarksburg, which is where more of the major stores and restaurants are located, closest to this area. A lot of houses in this area are older and built around the year 1939. Since the early 2000s, the population has reduced significantly. In the 2000 census, the population was documented at about 4,000 people. The average income for Weston is about $34,000, compared to West Virginia's average income at $44,000. Weston's poverty rate is about 25% and unemployment rate is about 50%. It also has a total area of 1 square miles, and it's made up of more historical sites, and there's another part where it's more industrialized and modernized. And though these parts of town are only about 10 minutes apart, the differences are very clear. This area lacks diversity. Out of almost 4,000 people, there are just 17 African Americans and 26 Asians, with the rest being whites. There are about 227 people unemployed, and with about 1/4 of the population below the poverty threshold. People here tend to hold jobs in education and healthcare, and each person we've conversed with, if not all, seem to be in their late 30s or older. Here we saw bars, senior centers, diners, medical services, many churches, and just a few grocery stores. Weston flips political parties. For the 2016 presidential election, they voted red. However, during Jim Justice's race for governor, they voted blue. Each person we conversed with was unable to determine the political affiliation of Weston. However, the local newspaper was titled Weston Democrat. Most of the business here comes from the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and the 2 residing hospitals. This population is mostly poor and made up of working and middle-class people. While driving through this town, like I said, we started on one side of Weston that was very historic, and then we made our way about 10 minutes across town, which was then very industrialized. In addition to people working jobs in education and in healthcare, people also find work in local shops and in restaurants. We also discovered that there is no available daily transportation services, and that a lot of these homes were run down and their safety was questioned. The unemployment rate in Weston is about 50% compared to West Virginia's average of 49%. Whites make up 95.7% of Weston's population. Asians make up about 3.7%, and African Americans make up about 1.9%. About 25% of people are living below the poverty line in Weston compared to 17% of people living below the poverty in West Virginia. Overall, of the 65 and up residents, about 80% of them graduated with high school diplomas, and only 14.4% received a bachelor's degree or higher. Most residents occupy a 1-story house. 13.2% live in a 2-story house, and a minority of residents live in mobile housing units. Most Weston residents finish their high school degree. 30.7% of people got an associate's degree. About 15% did not finish college. About 7% received a bachelor's degree, and almost 7% of residents acquired a graduate or professional degree. In total, the average educational attainment in Weston, which is defined as obtaining a high school diploma or higher, is 84.2% compared to the nation's average of 87.7%. Shockingly, females on average here have a higher median earning than their counterparts. Women on average make about $29,000 in a year, whereas men on average make around $28,000. The nation's average female median earning lies around $41,000. We've also learned that 68% of residents work in Lewis County. 28% of residents had less than a 10-minute commute to get to work. 23.3% 98% of residents had about a 10 to 14 minute commute to their workplace. Less than half of the population reported owning 2 cars, and 548 people pay between $500 and $700 monthly for housing. Here is the photo map of Weston, where we can see the 2 hospitals here, which I believe are just 3 minutes apart. There are a few historic sites, and as I said earlier, there are many, many churches. We learned from our key informants that many of the churches help with food scarcity in the community, because if you look, you can see a Walmart near the bottom of the page here in the industrialized area, but there's another grocery store that's in the central area near the asylum, so food deserts are common here because I believe there is also just 2 more grocery stores. Weston is a finalist for the HGTV Hometown Takeover Contest. Lake Riley was an active hotspot in Weston during the summer. It eventually closed down to the public. Weston was originally called Preston, then it was renamed to Flesherville, and finally in 1819 it became what is known as today, Weston. Jackson's Mill is currently owned by West Virginia University, and the Museum of American Glass was once a JCPenney. Moving on to Tala. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is one of the largest hand-cut stone buildings in the U.S. It originally opened in 1864 to treat patients, but ended up housing over 2,400 people by the 1950s, even some who did not need medical treatment. Formerly known as Weston State Hospital, the asylum closed down in 1994, but is still open for historic and paranormal tours. The shutdown of Tala impacted Weston's economy for the worse, and to this day they never recovered from it. Weston has a lot of community assets. It has more services than what was expected. Some I haven't yet mentioned are their Resource Center, a Meals on Wheels program, Family and Marital Counseling Center, therapy services, a hearing aid center, pharmacies, a family doctor, a laundromat. Not having transportation service in a place in this community impacts individuals without cars and elders who cannot get around by themselves. People move out of the town to find work outside, like Clarksburg, which is again just about 30 minutes away. A common reoccurrence from our key informants was that food insecurity was a big issue. With only 4 grocery stores in the town, it is apparent that affordable and accessible groceries are a need for the community. If you had to walk from the lunatic asylum to Walmart, which has the most cost-effective foods, it would take about 3 hours to walk if you had no transportation, or 15 minutes to drive. We interviewed 2 key informants in their household. Our first was a local private school educator who observed people make a living working for oil and gas companies. The hospitals are the biggest employers in this area. Because of lacking transportation, people create their own services by driving lawnmowers or having the FBI assist them. Weston is very family-oriented and hosts many parades. They talked about the benefits of private schools in this area and how passing the levy will benefit them as well. Our second key informant was a lifelong resident, and they brought up memories of a summer venue called Lake Riley that was West Virginia version of Dirty Dancing Camp. This individual could recall seeing Tala open as a child, and even around the time he was having kids of their own. Due to the lack of jobs, activities, and the deteriorating condition of the town, the population of Weston has been reducing. Well, this concludes our community assessment presentation on Weston, West Virginia. This is a photo of our group outside of Tala right after finishing our historic tour, which was very interesting, and I suggest everyone check it out at least once. Thank you for learning about Weston with us, and we hope you enjoyed.